Hey fellas and welcome to Rauta's Indie 5 review batch with 5 recordings, obviously. Well, since this is Indie 5, all the bands are more or less kind of unknown, or at least not having mainstream experience, but more of those bands that you probably never ever heard before, or at least most of the people have not. We'll start with a kind of a grindcore-ish band called Miscarriage. Now, bear in mind there are lots of bands with the same name, and as far as I can tell, this should be from Sweden, and this is actually a compilation called, let me just figure it out in order not to make me, Homicidal Mania Trilogy, and they obviously 3 different releases with the Homicidal Mania moniker, but this is actually made of all those. So as you can see, the track list is pretty huge. 30 tracks all in all. As you can see, all are in different chapters. And even though this is grindcore-ish or death grind, noise grind, whatever kind of stuff, they are not that short of songs that 30 tracks wouldn't be meaning anything else than a really long track length overall. So here's the cover, once again, kind of a Goat Z feeling here, if you know what I mean. And here's the kind of a thank you list. Then we have some lyrical content mixed with imagery. More stuff to follow you. And once again, the final set over here. So, Miscarriage. Well, to begin with, 30 tracks of any kind of music is usually too much on one go, and that very much applies to this particular compilation. Bear in mind it's compilation, so it's not as like they are kind of like lots of tracks just, you know, pulled out for the sheer quantity. It's more like different releases just suitable for, you know, purchasing. You know, if you don't want to have all of them in different releases, this is like a handy way to get to know the band. But as I was saying, it's quite a batch because all the tracks are obviously from the same stone, carved from the same stone, made of the same tree and all that stuff, all of those metaphors. And since all the music is really kind of a chaotic, kind of a noisy, grindish stuff, it gets, to be honest, quite tiresome after a while. Now, bear in mind, if I would have gone through these releases, you know, on a different day or different year even, and, you know, one go here and there, maybe I wouldn't feel such fed up feeling. But 30 tracks over and over again feels like a little overkill. Because the thing is, none of these tracks are exactly good. They are pretty decent, okay, in their own genre, which is very marginal, mind you. But the thing is that when you're going through 30 different tracks of the same genre, pretty much with the same kind of riffs and not too shabby a production, it gets really, really tiresome after a while. Now, luckily, it's not all, you know, fast tempo, 1 minute tracks, but they're kind of a diversity with the songs, and that actually leaves a little hope for people to enjoy this particular release or compilation. Doesn't really matter if you get these on different releases or just like one go compilation, the thing remains the same. They are noisy, they are grindy, and they are very simple in design, so you won't be finding any like memorable riffs or compositions, hit songs and all that stuff. It's noisy grindcore, and that's pretty much there is to know. So if you are of this marginal taste, sure, give it a chance, but don't have too high expectations. It's not bad, but it's kind of a mediocre-ish with maybe some plus added to the end, because besides, you know, having kind of a noisy stuff. But don't expect too much, to be honest. Next we go a little bit different genre. And this one is from United States. If you can't figure out from the logo, and to be honest, I don't know how to pronounce this bit that is called Aetranok. Kingdoms of the Black Sepulcher. So let's take a look at this American-made extreme metal release. Now, first go with this album, or first impression rather, was that this is kind of an industrial-shaped black metal or black metal hybrid of sorts, and you're just kind of like figuring out this hissing sound, which is kind of a not that kind of high pitched in a way, but more like hissing, and you know, it's kind of a industrial-ish. And at first it feels like a quite okay idea, but then after a while you're pretty much annoyed, like, why are you doing this? It's not properly industrial, it's not properly symphonic, but it certainly has those elements. And to be honest, sorry, wrong way. To be honest, all the songs are quite boring in the end. I mean, there are no really good songs, no good compositions whatsoever. And when you combine this to kind of a lo-fi hissing production, it starts to get more on the annoying than pleasing side. I'm not saying that this is totally crap, but say I'd rather listen to average radio station. This is subpar if you consider the par to be kind of a mediocre, so mediocre minus or something. Not very pleasant, kind of a demo-ish release if you ask my opinion. Not that you do, but since you're watching, I might as well give it to you. A little bit better is this Swiss band we have here. This is one funny case. Once again, I have to read it because I have no idea how to pronounce it. Brahdr'uhz. Sounds like I don't know, Tolkienish name for, I don't know, a Dwarven king or some orc warrior. Probably something these guys were after. This is a debut album called Land of Darkness. A couple of mini releases to go with the band, but this is the full-length album. Now, there is nothing of exception on this backside. 12 tracks and all that stuff, little handwriting, kind of or scratching. But when we start opening this album a little bit more, we see, fuck. Oh no, they used the F word, and then there's sort of pentagram, okay? It gets a little more amusing than that. So, here's the CD, once again, kind of scratchy things. And yes, we have kind of a really badassery cover image here, very much like the 1990s. And then we have Zero's black and white thing with saying, oh no, look at what they're saying. I'm gonna repeat it since YouTube doesn't really like, you know, use these kind of words. But even funnier it gets when you see the backside of this booklet. No, check out. I'm not talking about the recording information or the artist names, but the comment here. Wow. And really, wow. Such a badass band that I'm kind of overwhelmed. I mean, instead of having, say, lyrics maybe, or some cool, smart statement, philosophical point, these guys go full, and I'm like, are you guys 12, 10 maybe? I mean, everything starts to bother me from the very beginning. This looks like to me either a joke, or then these guys are a little bit slow, special people. But let's talk about music, not the band. I'm not here to decide, you know, judge, you know, what these guys are up to, but to me it looks like a little bit ridiculous. So this music of Land of Darkness, well, it's really raw, kind of a primitive black metal in the vein of those kind of underground quality French black metal names such as Torgeist, Belketre, Mutilation, and maybe some Judas Iscariot, even Iliarnish parts. So not just full French, but lots of French black metal underground stuff. Lots of Tepes maybe. And those are good in comparison. But let me tell you this much. There is 69 minutes of music on this album. So those 12 tracks are really, really lengthy. Well, not really lengthy, but way too much music for this kind of simple, raw, primitive black metal. Now, I wouldn't mind if these compositions were, say, on the same level of Ildiar, but to be honest, they are not. While there's certain appeal to this kind of a raw very harsh black metal and grim sound, because this is actually very lo-fi stuff. You have to be digging this kind of sound in the beginning to just, you know, start with the band. But I mean, I don't mind that. That is quite okay. It kind of fits here. And it seems like these guys are copycats to the highest degree. But the music is like, leave half of it away. Maybe some 35 minutes, 40 minutes max of this kind of stuff. Way shorter stuff, I mean songs. And it would be quite a nice album. But now this is just, you know, kind of too much mediocrity, even though some of these, you know, riffs are actually good. It seems like these guys have just, you know, put everything together in the hopes of making really good, lengthy album. But in my opinion, they should have done more kind of a editing, cutting, producing, whatever you want to call it. You know, just remove the extra fat from the album, because now it feels like it's just way too lengthy for its own good. I know it's a kind of a habit for me to say that when the album is, you know, lengthy and the album doesn't have the structure, you know, to support it. But it's very true with this kind of stuff. I mean, like I said, it really doesn't matter if you make raw, harsh, primitive, very simple black metal if you have the songs, like Ildiarn has. I mean, I could go 70 minutes of Ildiarn and, you know, no problemo, even though it's more harsh than this one. But when you don't have those songs, when your songs are like, yeah, good riff there, a couple of minutes later another one, but the extra feeling is just kind of a basic, decent, well, pretty decent stuff. It's like, I want to, you know, go fast forward. I want to skip the, you know, the ugly parts or the, you know, not so great parts. And that kind of leaves me a little bit of a feeling that it's not maybe for me. So kind of give it a shot, kind of an album, but don't have too much expectations. And first of all, if you can't look beside of these kind of childish remarks on this album, there's no hope. But I don't know, maybe you give it a go and figure out yourself if it's up to your liking. We'll continue with some more traditional style, and this one is of Swedish death metal. Enter Crawl with their album, which we have here. This is very traditional 1990s style of, well, Swedish death metal. I don't know if there is any better way to actually describe it. If you've ever enjoyed Entombed in any of its forms, you're pretty sure to handle this one nicely. This is an album called Rituals by a band called Crawl, like I said. Here's the back side of the cover, very traditional black, you know, and white, with some, you know, kind of a purple upside down crosses, and more esoteric design on the other side. Logo on the front, and then we have obviously the booklet, which is very simple, just lyrics on a nice glossy paper, black and white obviously, and all hope is now gone. Well, that's pretty much given when we are dealing with death metal. Now, like I said, this less than 30 minutes of a debut album is very much the typical Swedish take. I don't know if there's good grounds, you know, for having this kind of an album now that it's 2018 and everything is pretty much said and done in the genre. But then again, when the music is actually good and there are no basically weak links whatsoever, why the hell not? Well, to be honest, Crawl has done a good album, but also there are a couple of annoyances, very minor one, but nevertheless worth mentioning. First of all, it kind of ends up this noisy sound, you know, when you just leave your strings to play and, you know, the amplifier sounds like a sound, you know. For a time or two, it's okay to, you know, just leave that kind of a, I don't know it's what it's proper signal distortion sound is called, but anyway, for a couple of times it's quite okay, but basically like when every stop on a song has this kind of a noise, it starts to annoy if it's like a gimmick which is just repeated all over again. I'm not saying it's a big deal, but kind of like, guys, we got the point already with the first song. You don't have to repeat it throughout the whole 30 minutes or whatever, 27 minutes album. The other thing is the lack of diversity. Luckily, since the album is quite short, more like an EP, if you will, it doesn't get that boring, but maybe a little more chains throughout the patterns and songs could have been, you know, more, I don't know, added more layers to this album. Also, the vocals are somewhat boring. I mean, they line a kind of, you know, like a growly type of shouting, which don't exactly have the personality they could. I'm not saying they're bad, but it's something that these guys could basically stand out a little bit from the crowd to just add more something magical into those vocals. But nevertheless, despite these minor thingies, Rituals is a strong album, and if you are 90s era Swedish death metal fanatic, go check it out, you'll love it. Then we go to Finland with yet another Transcending Obscurity release that was Crawl also. And this one is really cool looking digipack. It's almost like a digibook. I mean, this is really thick for a digipack. It's funny, kind of, you know, both these albums are from Nordic countries, yet Transcending Obscurity is from India. So it's very like totally opposite part of the world which is creating and releasing these Nordic albums. Now, this is actually a re-release of a 2016 self-financed third album. And for some peculiar reasons, Transcending Obscurity has decided to... there's some lyrics for you, by the way. For some reason, Transcending Obscurity wanted to re-release this one. Now, I don't have the original version, so I don't know how it will look like if you open it. But to be honest, this really colorful Fringe re-release is really like an eye candy. It looks and feels really, really nice. So nice. I could basically shave my head with this. I guess that the self-financed release didn't fly that much. I mean, I've heard the early material, but not the Fringe original copy. So maybe these guys got another chance with, you know, going Lurk the fourth time, which is actually third time. Oh, okay, nonsense enough. Music-wise, Lurk is about sludge and doom, kind of a death doom combination. Their first album was actually quite an interesting death doom take. Then they started to, you know, kind of slide more into the sludge side. And the death doom elements started to fade on the background. And to be honest, I don't think it was a good decision. Of course, this is a matter of musical tastes more than anything. But in my opinion, this third album is really, really quite boring and challenging to listen. It's about 45 minutes, but it feels certainly like it's 90 minutes. It's really that repetitive. It's also having these, you know, very slow, doomy songs. Which then again are filled with really mediocre riffs all over again, and there are hardly any good parts on this album. It's kind of sorry to say, but to me it sounds like this is an album filled with leftover riffs. Considering how good work their first album was, and what I learned from a colleague's review about the second album, it seems that it was pretty much on the same level as the first one, but this is a big letdown for me. It's like as if the guys tried to, you know, shed their skin and, you know, create something different. I mean, the slowliness of doom is still there, and the, you know, vocals are somewhat, you know, kind of death doomy with its scrolling, but they're really weak, and they, to be honest, they don't quite fit that well this kind of music. But despite what the tempo is, now it feels like these guys don't have the heaviness of death doom, yet they do have vocals which are somewhere along those lines, and they are not fully, you know, going to this kind of sludge music either. It's kind of a hybrid, which instead of picking the good parts of either world, is now taking the bad apple, so to speak. And I find this kind of a really boring. It's not totally hopeless, it's not full of crap, but it's something that I feel like after 3 spins or so, I'm like, why I am listening to this? I could be just listening to average radio station and be probably more entertained, which is not a big compliment. But maybe this is one of those acquired taste things. Maybe you just have to be absolute doom sludge fanatic to enjoy this a lot. To me, it shows that these guys took a sidestep to the wrong direction, and let's hope that in the future they will be going back to the quality again. Okay, this time I'm actually missing the CD, which was open in my player. And now we go to Cuba. Released by a Russian label called Aetranok. It's kind of weird that they had a band from Cuba playing Nordic black metal. Now, first when I heard the name Skjult, I thought that this must be some Norwegian, maybe Swedish black metal name, because after all, this image and name kind of indicates sort of a black metal release, which this is in fact. But the band is from Cuba. It's a one-man project, and curiously enough, this is one of the better black metal releases this year, in my opinion. Not original as such. This album is tapping the very same vein as, say, bands like Dark Funeral, maybe Marduk, maybe a little bit of Mayhem. Get the idea. Fast tempo, melodic, really dark and sinister black metal, the way it was already back in the early, mid and late 90s. So this is more like a second wave of a black metal release in the Nordic style, given that it is from Cuba. And I find it kind of fascinating, not only because it's from a different part of the world, still, you know, doing Nordic black metal, but because it's actually a good one. Everything from, you know, production, which is quite solid, you know, accurate, you know, clear, and yet having strong bass drums. The guitar sound is kind of a, you know, this kind of like thin, very cutting edge. It's kind of a, you know, razor sharp in a way. And actually it's creating wonderful feeling for this album. And also those very typical kind of screamy black metal vocals, they are all there. So I have very little things to complain about this album, because after all, even if it's not original, I don't care. It's a good one. It really, you know, nails Jesus on the cross and delivers the type of black metal I'm enjoying very much. This could have been like 1995 release, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was of that era. But this is very much 2018 release, actually released in February 2018. So one of those gems you probably missed because it's an unknown band from a country which is not known for extreme metal, and because of a small label. But here we are. I'm really happy to get a copy of this, because these kind of underground releases are one of the major reasons why I'm still reviewing albums. I might go through 19 non-interesting albums in order to just find one of these. Nice album, nice black metal. So go check it out if you just don't care about the rest in this video. And since we are already done, I wish you a good day. Check out the samples of the albums given, and take care.